This room is an accumulation of all knickknacks and old business pencils, calendars, and what have you. The biggest attraction is the projector from the old Grand Theater from across the street. It's put in there in the 1930s and existed till about early 1960s. There's still a couple of the projection operators around. Roger Perkins was one of them, and he wrote a detailed story of it that everybody seems to enjoy and read. That's all odds and ends. Here's an old butter box, flat irons, old church plates, pencils, a whole cigar box full of pencils, one real old phone, and the next step up is this dial one. And all these old calendars came in from out of nowhere, dating way back into the 1930s. When you look at the trophy, it says Dawson 63, opponents 0.
Ethel Mellum started dressing dolls when she was a child, and this became a hobby that just expanded. At the point where she left her home before she went into the nursing home, and they auctioned, some went to the museum and some were auctioned, she had 480 dolls displayed in her home.
This is the famous vault that we centered the interior decoration around. April 1930, a couple of thugs came to town and they looked the town over. They came in here and cashed a $20 bill, looked around. Next day they came back.
Walked in that front door, up those very steps that you walked down when you came in, with guns, robbed the bank.
There were 8 people in here, employees plus a couple of patrons. They made them lay on the floor, ransacked through all the drawers, got what they wanted. When they did, why, they herded them all, 8 of them, into the vault.
And there was no light, and it's airtight. So they locked the vault door and left.
Slammed the door, out the back door, and nobody ever heard from them since.
Now the people in the vault quickly was losing, and it's not very big, and they were quickly losing air to breathe. Finally a customer came in and the bank president yelled, "Help, help, we're in here. I'll give you the combination, you open the lock." Well, whoever was out there hadn't opened a bank vault door and didn't know how, it tried. Then they said, we're having trouble breathing. Go run and get the president of the other bank. He'll know how to open it. And that's what happened. So after that, they installed a vent. If it ever happened again, they would at least have air to breathe. So there's a vent there that's still there. The story goes is they escaped without anybody seeing them. The crime was never solved in a time frame that's normal. In fact, it was only solved 2 or 3 years ago. And was solved by a lady rummaging through her uncle who had just died, rummaging through his things, and she found an interesting book there. A book that said, "How I Made My Living, I Robbed Banks." Well, he didn't write the book, but he read the book. And inside the book were sketches of banks, one of which is Dawson. So that's how it was solved, just a couple years ago.
First the baby in Dawson born was Helmer Carlson, and of course from the day he was born until he passed away, his nickname was Dawes. Nobody knew him by anything else. This is what we call the Veterans Room. We're dedicated to World War II and World War I and Korean veterans. At one time I was up to a fellow's house that was making model airplanes for a hobby and had them hanging all over the ceiling. And I said, well, gee, I remember a guy who used to fly a P-38 and another one that flew a F-4U Kozar. And he said, well, he says, maybe you want them up at the museum. So yeah, I took those two planes and we hung them up here. And then we found the families that were connected to them. This is the reason this building got renovated. This is Steve's safari room. Steve was our son, and he'd been to Africa 5 different times. Steve was a real congenial person, well liked. He was just a great person to have around, and these trips to Africa was a real big thing for him. He had a terminal illness that lasted for about 7 years, and this gave him something to have on his mind. He was always ready to visit and tell stories about Africa. So when this opportunity that we could make a permanent memory of him, this was our big thing. And of course, the community always wanted to have a museum, so between the two, it just worked out a beautiful combination.
As we were working it, people started coming through and telling stories about being in here. One guy said, my grandpa said the Ku Klux Klan met upstairs. Another person said, well, I went to a birthday party when somebody lived upstairs. Just different stories. It's our own. We always have felt we were part of the Lac Parle Museum, the county one. We like having our own. It's a smaller one, but more personal to us. I would just hope that people are really interested in coming to see the things in it. People that have come in it have been pleasantly surprised.
Postcards is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Additional support provided by Margaret A. Cargill Philanthropies, Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farms, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota. On the web at shalomhillfarm.org. Alexandria, Minnesota, a year-round destination with hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for memorable vacations and events. More information at explorealex.com. The Lake Region Arts Council's Arts Calendar, an arts and cultural heritage funded digital calendar showcasing upcoming art events and opportunities for artists in West Central Minnesota. On the web at lrac4calendar.org. Playing today's new music plus your favorite hits, 96.7 Cram. Online at 967cram.com.